They don't say it out loud, but you can feel it. Every room you walk into, there's a tension. Every conversation, you sense the subtle exclusion. You're not imagining it. You've been feeling left out. And it hurts more than you admit. Not because you crave attention, not because you want the spotlight, but because deep down, you've always wondered, why doesn't anyone truly see me? The answer: you were never meant to blend in. And that's the very reason you've been kept on the outside. From an early age, you noticed it. You were always the one who felt too deep, too sensitive, too observant. While others moved with the crowd, you sat in silence, watching. You picked up on the energy in the room before anyone said a word. People liked you, but didn't really include you. They listened, but never really understood you. You were close, but always kept at a distance, spiritually, emotionally, and socially. It's because you were never wired for superficial connection. You weren't built for average conversation or fake community. Your soul carries something ancient, something sacred, and people can feel that, even if they don't understand it. They sense your depth and it makes them uncomfortable. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your presence activates something in their spirit they're not ready to face. Most people avoid mirrors that show them too much truth. And you are a mirror. You reflect back what others are hiding from. That's why people start to shift around you. That's why some smile, but it feels hollow. That's why you're often celebrated when you're silent, but criticized the moment you speak truth. They don't know how to handle your light, so they pretend it's not there. You've probably asked yourself, what's wrong with me? But that question was never meant for you. The real question is, what's right with you that makes so many uneasy? There's a spiritual reason you feel left out. You carry a frequency that doesn't align with the world's noise. You walk in energy that's been set apart, and that separation creates silence. It creates distance. It creates misunderstanding. Not everyone can recognize a chosen one. Fewer can walk beside one. Because being chosen isn't about popularity. It's about isolation with intention. When God sets someone apart, He also protects their environment. He removes distractions disguised as friendships. He separates you from conversations that would dilute your purpose. And yes, it feels like loneliness, but it's actually positioning. You're not being rejected. You're being refined. Think back to the times you tried to force yourself into circles. It never felt right, did it? You smiled. You nodded. You played along. But something inside of you was always whispering, this isn't where you belong. You could be in a room full of people and still feel completely alone. That's not emptiness. That's spiritual sensitivity. Your soul recognizes when your spirit is out of place. The truth they don't want you to know is this: your isolation isn't a flaw. It's a feature. It's a divine tool used to protect the sacred calling on your life. And most people will never understand that. They'll label it as weird, antisocial, arrogant, whatever makes them feel more comfortable about keeping you out. But they don't know that the very thing they're avoiding is what they need the most. Your presence carries clarity. Your voice carries truth. Your silence speaks volumes. And that's threatening in a world built on illusion. You've probably noticed how people come to you when they need healing, but disappear when they feel whole. That's because they were never interested in you. They were interested in your energy. They drained your light, then walked away. But even that was part of the assignment. You're not just here to be seen. You're here to awaken others, even if it costs you comfort. They don't invite you not because they don't like you, but because they feel you. They sense your purity in a world that glorifies performance. They feel the weight of your presence in rooms that are used to pretending. You show up, and the energy shifts. Suddenly, masks get heavy. Hidden agendas feel exposed. Conversations can't stay shallow, because your spirit demands depth. And not everyone is ready for that kind of light. You weren't designed to chase inclusion. You were designed to stand apart, not in pride, but in purpose. That feeling of being left out isn't punishment, it's preservation. Every time they overlooked you, they were unknowingly keeping your spirit safe from contamination. Every missed invite was protection from distraction. Every silent treatment was a signal from heaven that you're being kept hidden, until it's time to be revealed on a level no one saw coming. Even when you try to downplay who you are, it still shines through. That's what they fear, not what you say, but what you carry. That unexplainable something they can't quite put into words, but feel the moment you walk in. That's why people you barely know either open up to you completely or avoid you entirely. That's the spiritual tension of being chosen. You're not meant for surface-level anything. Your soul was designed for divine depth. And when people aren't ready to go there, they'll try to leave you out, because including you would force them to change. And here's what they'll never admit. They watch you. Closely. Silently. They study how you move. They wonder why nothing sticks to you the way it does to others. Why you don't crumble when storms hit. Why you walk with quiet authority, even when you feel broken inside. What they don't know is that your strength doesn't come from this world. It comes from the sacred solitude they tried to use against you. You learned to live without applause. You found peace in silence. You built strength in the shadows. That's why you're dangerous now. Because nothing external controls you anymore. They can't manipulate you with attention, with rejection, or with fake love. You see through all of it and still choose love. Being left out taught you that belonging has nothing to do with the crowd and everything to do with calling. And now you understand. You were never left out. You were set apart. Set apart doesn't always feel like favor. In fact, most times it feels like punishment. Like being banished while everyone else is celebrated. Like being invisible even though you carry something unforgettable. But the truth is, you were hidden not because you were unworthy, but because you were unmatched. And what is unmatched cannot be mishandled by ordinary hands. You weren't supposed to be included in everything, because not everything was worthy of your presence. Not every table you were left out of was divine injustice. Some were traps dressed up as connection. The people you longed to be close to. They couldn't even handle your shadow, let alone your truth. You would have watered yourself down just to keep them comfortable. But your soul was never designed for dilution. It was built to stir, to awaken, to confront what's fake. They didn't reject you. Their spirits just recognized they weren't equipped to walk with you. So God allowed them to pull away. He allowed the silence, the exclusion, the absence. Because the version of you they wanted wouldn't have survived your assignment. You needed to walk alone so your spirit could grow unshaken. And now, here you are, stronger than the ones who left you behind. They said you were too much, too intense, too serious, too quiet, too mysterious. But in reality, you were too real. And that scared people who built their lives on pretending. Your honesty exposed their performance. Your depth made their distractions feel shallow. Your discernment made their masks feel heavy. So they called it weird. They called it distant. But really, it was divine. Chosen ones don't fit, they reveal. And that revelation either draws people closer or drives them away. There is no in-between. And yet, you've always felt the ache, because even chosen ones have human hearts. You've tried to explain yourself more than once, tried to prove you were lovable, worthy, harmless. But no matter how much you tried, the energy never lied. People felt your calling before you understood it. They treated you like a threat without a reason. But the truth is, your very existence challenged their slumber. You didn't need to say a word. Just your presence reminded them of everything they were avoiding within themselves. That's why it always hurt more when the ones you loved most were the ones who left you out. Because you weren't pretending with them. You let them in. You softened your walls. You gave your light freely. And even then, they chose distance. They couldn't handle what you carried. And you blamed yourself for years. But now you see, they were never rejecting you. They were retreating from what was attached to you. You're not lonely because you're hard to love. You're lonely because you're rare. And rare things are often misunderstood, mishandled, or hidden until they're ready to be revealed. There's a reason diamonds are formed in darkness, a reason oil only flows after pressure, a reason prophets cry alone before they ever speak in public. Your pain has purpose, and your separation has structure. You're not overlooked. You're being observed, quietly, carefully, spiritually. Heaven has not forgotten you. It's been preparing you. Isolation was never your sentence. It was your sanctuary. You didn't know it, but God was detoxing you from the approval you thought you needed, from the people you thought would go with you, from the noise that clouded your intuition. And now, with every person who walked away, your clarity increased. With every door that closed, your focus sharpened. With every season you thought was empty, your roots went deeper. That's the silent power of being set apart. It doesn't announce itself. It builds in secret. And when the world finally sees you, they'll call it sudden. But it wasn't sudden. It was sacred. Even now, you feel the shift. You're no longer desperate for inclusion. You're not begging to be chosen by people who can't recognize your value. You've stopped explaining your soul to ears that were never meant to hear it. And that silence you once feared, it's now your sanctuary. You're learning to love the quiet because it's where you hear God clearest. You've become peaceful in your own presence, and that scares people. Because nothing is more powerful than someone who doesn't need validation to feel valuable. Nothing confuses the world more than someone who can sit in their solitude and still radiate purpose. That's who you are now, and they don't know what to do with that version of you. So they still try to ignore you, but their spirit reacts every time you come around, because energy doesn't lie, and yours carries weight. That's why some people avoid eye contact, why conversations stop when you walk in, why they whisper when they think you're not listening. They don't hate you, they just can't define you, and people fear what they can't explain. You've tried to explain yourself long enough, but now you know. You don't owe anyone understanding. You don't owe anyone access. Just because they know your name doesn't mean they deserve your presence. Not everyone is meant to walk with a chosen one. Some are just meant to watch from a distance as your calling unfolds. You were excluded so you could evolve. They thought leaving you out would silence you, but it taught you to listen. They thought rejecting you would break you, but it made you whole. They thought overlooking you would make you question your worth, but it forced you to see your value in God, not man. They gave you the gift they never intended to: freedom. Freedom from needing the room. Freedom from shrinking to fit in. Freedom from compromising your spirit for community that didn't honor you. And now, you carry a kind of strength that can't be shaken by silence. They don't talk about this part of being chosen. The part where you sit alone, night after night, wondering if something is wrong with you. The part where birthdays feel heavy because you realize how small your circle is. The part where even family doesn't get you, and friends fall away one by one. But this is the refining, the becoming, the part they never see, but the part heaven celebrates. Because the more alone you became, the more aligned you became. You stopped chasing attention and started embodying purpose, and that's where your real power was unlocked. You're not left out. You're being lifted up, spiritually, quietly, intentionally. There's a reason your soul never let you settle, a reason you couldn't stay where it felt fake. You tried. You tried to stay quiet, to blend in, to make yourself small enough to be accepted. But no matter how hard you tried, the discomfort grew louder. You weren't supposed to fit in, because your spirit was always bigger than the space. And now you're starting to understand. You weren't left out. You were pulled aside. You weren't forgotten. You were being refined. Every time you felt like the odd one, it was a signal. You were tapped into something deeper. You saw what others didn't. You felt what others numbed. You carried what others feared. You weren't strange. You were sensitive, spiritually. Chosen ones are sensitive not because they're weak, but because they're wired for divine clarity. Your ability to feel deeply, to read a room, to sense people's motives before they speak, that's not paranoia, that's insight. And it's insight many don't want you to have. That's why people try to silence you. That's why they label you dramatic or intense. They're trying to dull what they don't understand. But what they can't see is that your sensitivity is your sword. It cuts through confusion. It protects your path. It's what kept you alive in spiritual environments that were designed to suffocate you. The real reason you feel left out, you were never meant to play their game. You were designed to change it, but you can't change a system you're enslaved by. So God broke the attachment. He cut ties you wouldn't have had the strength to sever on your own. People walked away because the anointing on your life started irritating their comfort zones, and heaven let it happen. Because he knows elevation requires elimination. They didn't say goodbye. They just faded. They didn't give closure. They just disappeared. And you were left holding the silence like it was your fault. But what you didn't see then is that their exit was your exodus. Their departure was your deliverance. You didn't lose a friend. You lost a delay. You didn't lose community. You lost confusion. People can't go where your spirit is taking you, especially if they're still pretending, especially if they haven't done the inner work. You didn't change. You evolved. You shed the layers that were never yours. You stopped performing. You stopped chasing. You stopped begging for crumbs from tables you were never meant to sit at. And when that happened, the room grew quiet. But that silence became sacred. Your solitude has become your sanctuary. You hear God there. You trust yourself there. You've become aware of patterns, energy shifts, soul contracts, things you never noticed before. And with that awareness came power. Quiet, unshakable, spiritual power. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that doesn't fight for approval. The kind that simply walks in and changes everything without needing to be seen. You are different now, and they feel it. Even the ones who don't speak to you anymore. They still feel your presence. You cross their mind without saying a word. You appear in their dreams. They scroll past your energy online and pause without understanding why. That's what happens when a chosen one rises. The impact becomes spiritual. Your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did. They tried to contain you with silence, but your silence became your spotlight. They thought you'd disappear. Instead, you became undeniable. And still, you walk in humility. That's what they don't get. You don't seek revenge. You don't clap back. You don't flex, because you don't have to. Your life is becoming the answer to every question they asked in doubt. And it's not personal. It's prophetic. They were never your enemies. They were just part of the pattern. The resistance that revealed your identity. The rejection that realigned your direction. The people who had to fall away so God could reveal who you really are. Now you know why your heart is so heavy sometimes, why your path feels lonely, why your nights feel longer than most. It's because you're carrying light into a world addicted to darkness. You're loving deeply in a culture trained to numb. You're staying true to your soul in a time when most are selling theirs for attention. And that's hard. That's painful. But it's also rare. And you were never called to be common. You are the one who breaks the cycle. The one who heals the trauma. The one who calls out the lie even when your voice shakes. The one who shows up anyway. That takes courage most don't have. That's why you've been left out. Because most people don't want to be reminded of what they could be if they stopped pretending. But you stopped. You stripped it all away. You allowed the fire to burn everything false. And now all that's left is truth. Raw, radiant, holy truth. And truth, chosen one, is magnetic. Truth is power. Truth is presence. You no longer walk into rooms looking for acceptance. You walk in knowing you are the shift. The ones who tried to forget you will one day speak of you with awe. The ones who overlooked you will study your steps. Not because you tried to prove anything, but because you stayed faithful in the quiet. because you kept your soul clean when you could have played dirty, because you carried heaven in places where hell had reigned for generations. That's what it means to be chosen. It means being left out, so one day you can lead. It means being stripped down, so you can be rebuilt stronger. It means being emptied, so your life can be filled with something this world can't replicate. And now, you walk forward different, not bitter, not angry, just whole, just aware, just awake. And that energy, that clarity, that presence, it's undeniable. They don't need to say your name to feel your impact. You've become the one who carries what they can't describe. Peace in chaos, depth in silence, power without performance. You were never left out. You were set apart. And now they see it. And soon, they'll never forget it.